Good day, everyone! We will be starting pa in 5 minutes. But first, here are a few reminders before we begin our event. First, always put your microphones on mute to avoid any interruptions. Second, use the Zoom chat feature to check the link that we will be using for the Q&A portion of our event. Third, be mindful of your surroundings when video is on during the event's documentation portion. And lastly, of course, enjoy and listen to this insightful forum.
And of course, an acknowledgement for our wonderful partners who've made this event possible. Let's extend our heartfelt gratitude to UP Campus Crusade for Christ and UP Business Management Society.
We would like to officially welcome everyone to today's policy forum entitled Miyabe-Abeng Mangisnawa, Synergizing Systems for Safer Public Spaces in the Philippines. I am Joyce Chua and I'm with
Paco Tumangan, and we are thrilled to be your hosts for this engaging session. Joyce, let's delve into the heart of our theme today. So, what exactly does Miyabeng-Abeng Mangisnawa mean, and why does it hold such significance relevant?
That really is a good question, Paco. Yung forum's title natin kasi is actually the Kapampangan term, which means breathing together. With this, it is also the equivalent term for ginhawa or relief in other languages. So dito, this event seeks to promote better breathing in public spaces across the country by raising awareness on policies and innovations na pwede nating i-adopt to mitigate the effects of airborne diseases in the future.
Wow, that sounds exciting, especially as we just experienced the recent pandemic. And the insights we're about to uncover today hold immense relevance, and we are genuinely thrilled about this journey of exploring diverse perspectives on tackling our current health and public space issues. Let's gauge the excitement in the Zoom room. Can we shower our screen with heart reacts to see if our audiences is geared up? Ayan,
Show us some love, guys.
Yes, plus those reactions.
Look at those hearts popping up.
Your enthusiasm is contagious, actually, and it's setting the perfect tone for our insightful journey ahead.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for engaging with us. To formally open our event, may we call on our professor for the Science, Technology, and Society course, Prof. Remy De Leon. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Thank you very much to our dear hosts. I am very glad to see everyone here today. This will be the first of our forums for the December 2023 run of the Bangkulala Science and Technology Policy Forums. And rather appropriately, we'll be talking about designing public spaces to cope with airborne vector diseases, including of course, what we've all just gone through, the COVID-19 pandemic. A topic made even more appropriate by the fact that we currently have an upswing of COVID-19 cases, particularly in the NCR right now. We know how serious the topic is. I certainly do, because I went through a rather severe case myself, and also a number of well, let's not get into details, I suppose, but we've all experienced struggles and losses during the pandemic, and we want to make sure that we're ready and not be caught as flat-footed as we were during the last, when we last saw the start of a pandemic. A lot of that, of course, boils down to making sure that our public spaces are safe and making sure that we are ready to deal with an airborne vector disease when it comes over. So I am very glad to welcome the speakers whom the students have invited for this particular talk. I'm particularly thankful to Engineer Joshua Agar, whose Twitter posts during the pandemic were very insightful and helpful. And I'd like to welcome landscape architect Don Manlangit, who has also done wonderful work in the area. Okay, so I guess we're all excited to hear from our speakers, and and all excited to ask questions. So I will shut up now and just let everyone uh, enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you, and welcome to the forum.
All right. Thank you so much po, Prof. De Leon.
Okay, so thank you so much, Prof. De Leon, for that warm welcome. Indeed, this forum is our proactive stance against airborne diseases, and we are equipped and prepared to tackle whatever comes our way.
All right. To before we begin, of course, let me reiterate lang yung ating mga reminders para sa mga kakarating lang. So, for our few reminders lang, first, always put your microphones on mute po to avoid any interruptions. And use the Zoom chat feature naman to check the link that we will be using for the Q&A portion of our event. And third, be mindful po sa mga surroundings natin when video is on during the event's documentation portion. And we are encouraging everyone pala to open their cameras on if kaya naman po ng connection niya. And lastly, enjoy and listen to this insightful forum.
And of course, another acknowledgement for our wonderful partners who made this event possible. Let's extend our heartfelt gratitude to UP Clark and UP Business Management Society.
Ayan, before we delve into our discussion for today, magkakaroon muna tayo ng forum flow. So this will be the format of our forum. So this event will have two segments. So the first segment will discuss the challenges and lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, existing policies and gaps, and policy recommendations. While the second segment naman will discuss innovative design approaches and technological interventions for pandemic preparedness.
And of course, after every discussion, there will be a 10-minute Q&A session wherein the participants can send in their questions through a link in the Zoom chat box, and our speaker will answer them.
All right, with that, Paco, do the honor of introducing our first speaker for today.
Okay, so he is a registered civil engineer with a master's degree in civil engineering, specializing in wind engineering, including forensic wind and structural analysis, computational fluid dynamics, particle transport, finite element analysis, and disaster risk management. Formerly, he was also a University Research Associate 2 and Science Research Specialist 1 under the Severe Wind Risk Project at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He is currently an assistant professor at the UP Institute of Civil Engineering and a research fellow at the UP Center of Air Research in Urban Environments, focusing on indoor air quality, and the National Project Coordinator of the Center for Research on the Epidemiology of Disaster.
Without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Engineer Joshua C. Agar. Good morning po, sir.
Hello, good morning. So, currently nasa class ako pero nagpapakwiz lang naman tayo. So, can I share my screen na? Okay. And again, ang main takeaway natin after what we have gone through dito sa pandemic is the fact that COVID-19 is an airborne disease. So, today we will discuss some of the insights na nakuha natin from this and how are we using those insights and lessons in order to move forward, and particularly in preparation for future pandemics and even in this ongoing pandemic. Ano ba yung magagawa natin to protect ourselves from getting sick? So first, syempre, since sinabing COVID is airborne, ano ba yung mga na-unravel attacks? First is that most of the expired aerosols are in fact fine aerosols. Meaning nun yung palutang-lutang sa hangin, yung maninipis na aerosol na hindi mo nakikitang tumatalsik. So meron kasing droplet na talsik ng laway. Pero meron ka ding mga aerosols na na-emit every time you do respiratory activities, which includes breathing, speaking, and even coughing. So numerous experimental studies have already evaluated that most of the particles that are being expired by humans has a diameter less than 10 micrometers. So maliit-liit siya compared to what's initially thought of, especially on the onset of the pandemic. Then, siyempre, speaking of numerous studies, kahit anong modality, meaning maski humihinga ka, maski nagsasalita ka lang, kapag umuubo ka din, most of the aerosols that are being emitted, so if you check yung distribution na na-emit, are those fine aerosols. And those fine aerosols, mabagal mag-ship yung slides. Okay. Most of those fine aerosol carry most of the viral load, meaning yung virus na dala-dala na nagkakos ng infection are carried by those fine aerosols. So numerous studies, experimental studies were already done to parang establish that fact. So this is an example on which parang breathe in towards a cone yung infected na patient. Then somehow may ducting dito. And ang napansin is most of the virus, instead na na-deposit siya dun sa surface ng cone, nag-travel pa siya dun sa cone. Nag-travel pa siya dun sa duct. So meaning, ang mainly nagkikerry ng SARS-CoV-2 are in fact yung mga fine aerosols na pwedeng dumaan through ducts. And speaking of ducts, sinubukan na rin to even on animals, sa ferrets. So you have this infected ferret right here. Then you have this recipient na ferret above. And you have this tube right here na paliko-liko. So kung talsik siya ng laway, supposedly hindi mahahawa yung recipient supposedly. Pero dahil dala-dala siya ng hangin, nahawa yung ferret. Parang naging positive din siya sa SARS-CoV-2. And even the fact na kahit sa hangin lang mismo, so kung sumalok lang ng konting hangin, as sinampling nila, may nakita silang SARS-CoV-2 sa hangin. So anong implications nun? Una is there's an ongoing paradigm shift from understanding that from talsik ng laway, so droplets, into acknowledging yung aerosol transmissions. So dito napapasok yung fluid dynamics na perspective on how paano mo madidistinguish, paano nagbe-behave yung mga aerosols na yon. So by acknowledging na aerosol transmission siya, first is that infection occurs when you inhale those pathogenic aerosols. So yung mga aerosols na may dalang virus, pag mo yun, tendencies mag-infect. Tapos na-unravel din yung assertion behind sa droplet transmission. So through literature review, parang sinasabi na wala naman actually demonstration na dahil sa talsik ng laway nagkaroon ng infection. Well, at the same time, unraveling those literature reveals na it's an assertion ng isang American epidemiologist, isang renowned American epidemiologist, si Charles Chapin, 1912, yung assertion na kaya nagkakaroon ng hawaan dahil natalsikan ng laway. Parang tinatry niyang i-route off yung aerosol transmission even though wala pang evidence na nagsasuggest. So, question na lang, paano nag-move yung aerosol? So, paano napapasok yung fluid dynamics sa perspective? Parang kailangan na ng help from physical scientists and engineers in helping us understand ano yung implications nito. So, if you recall, Newton's laws of motion, sum of all forces is equal to mass times acceleration. So, first is, paano natin na-identify forces? Of course, if you have this pathogenic aerosol, meron siyang weight. Yung weight is a force due to gravity. Next is meron kang buoyancy. So kapag mas mainit yung hangin sa baba, tas kumpara sa malamig na hangin sa taas, ang tendency is aangat yung hangin. So may magtutulak dun sa aerosol sa taas due to the differences. You also have yung aerodynamic na effects. First is yung lift. Kung dito yung wind direction, may tendency na umangat yung aerosol due to the lift na force. While at the same time, you also consider yung drag na force. So kung paano siya na-drag away ng hangin na bumibig. So by balancing those forces and knowing yung kinematics, so speaking of kinematics, yung pag-determine kung paano naglalakbay yung aerosol with respect dun sa hangin, kailangan muna natin makuha yung relative velocity. Ibig sabihin, kung magkasing bilis lang yung takbo ng aerosol doon sa hangin, yung relative velocity will be equal to 0. So walang nag-i-exist na forces. Pero for example, mas mabilis yung hangin kaysa dun sa aerosol, doon nagmamanifest yung forces. So ganoon natatangan ng hangin. At the same time, depending sa size ng aerosol mo, knowing all of these equations, malalaman mo gaano siya kabilis mag-react. So doon napapasok yung acceleration. How fast is the velocity changing after you applied all of those forces? The more massive yung aerosol, mas mabagal yung tinatawag na particle response time. So you have this graph right here. So ito yung wind supposedly na bumuga sa kanya. Ito yung velocity or yung speed ng aerosol. So parang it takes time for the aerosol to catch up with the speed of the wind. So yun yung tinatawag na particle response time. Ito rin yung nagdidictate kung gaano siya katagal lumulutang sa hangin through Stokes law. So, the smaller the particles, the smaller the aerosol, mas matagal siyang palutang-lutang sa hangin. And it's also the reason why aerosols, or kinocode nga nila as droplets, with sizes of 100 micrometers, dahil massive enough na siya, mas malakas na yung gravitational force. Mabilis na siyang bumulusok sa lupa. Pero dahil maliit siya, mabagal. Pag mas maliit ngayon yung aerosol, mas matagal ngayon yung tinatawag na settling velocity. And on the other hand, syempre, since na-mention na natin yung hangin, it's also on the same principle through the conservation of momentum natin ma-determine paano nagbe-behave yung hangin. So by knowing yung pressure gradient, yung buoyancy, shear stresses, and gravity. So all of those Neighbor-Stokes equation. So naka-intimidate lang tong equation na to. Pero this is yung acceleration na part. So yung change of velocity across time, change of velocity across space, yung differences in pressure. Kasi may tendency nga, di ba, naituro nga sa high school science natin na it goes from regions of higher pressure to regions. So yung suction. And meron ka rin shear stresses. Ito yung friction. Parang iskisan between air molecules. We also invoke yung isa pang na ituturo ng high school na sa natin na-appreciate fully yung in a system where parang it is close to all transfers of matter. So ang nun is what goes in is equals what goes out. So if you have this value na gagawin mo lang, we know what goes in, we know what goes out. So halimbawa, mas malaki yung what goes in kumpara dun sa what goes out, you would expect na nag-accumulate yung mass dito sa loob. So ganun yung mass balance natin. And similarly, ganun din natin na model ngayon, how are we understanding what's called shared room air transmission. So meron kang concentration ng virus within the room. Then, kailangan mo lang accounting na ilang virus, ng virus sa hangin, ilan yung lumalabas na virus sa room, ilan yung nai-introduce na virus due to the infected, ilan yung napapalitan na hangin. Halimbawa, pag nag-ventilate ka, binubuksan mo yung bitana, may pumapasok na sariwang hangin. So, yung sariwang hangin na yun, walang virus. So, paano siya na-affect sa balanse ng mass? So, accounting lang ginagawa natin. Pero, naka-intimidate lang pag express mo in equation form. On the other hand, kapag tumingin pa tayo sa mas maliit na, so interaction between many finite volumes, doon na papasok yung tinatawag na computational fluid dynamics. So doon na pumapasok yung research ko. So when we model, paano ngayon yung conservation of mass nun? Dinedetermine din natin yung what goes in and what goes out, pero kinoconsider na rin natin yung tinatawag na diffusion. So, yung tendency to go from rich. So, ito ay example ng classroom na halimbawa well-ventilated. So, paano nagdi-disperse yung mga virus? So, dito sa mga blue na part na to, dito mabilis yung daloy ng hangin. At yung blue na to is less yung concentration ng virus. Pero dito sa part na stale yung hangin, mas mataas pa rin, relatively mas mataas yung concentration ng virus. Yun lang yung implication. Tapos, syempre, mini-mention na natin lahat mechanisms, paano natin ngayon pinakompute yung risk. So, di ba, napapansin natin ang daming mga epidemiological models na parang based sa number of cases, yung number of susceptible, so you have yung SEIR model or yung SDIR model for engineering purposes, particularly for analyzing yung tinatawag ng mga super spreader events. When we determine yung infectivity ng virus, we use yung tinatawag na Wells-Riley formula. So simply, ano lang siya, inverse exponential equation. Yung parang yung relationship ng dose doon sa probability of infection. So the higher the dose, the higher the probability of infection. So ito lang yung expression in terms of formula. And speaking of those, kailangan lang nating makonsider gaano ka-infectious yung aerosols, gaano ka-concentrated yung aerosols within that parcel of air na inihinga natin, gaano tayo kabilis humihinga, nagbe-breathe in, and ano yung mass na suot natin. Kasi nagpipinifilter niya yung hangin na dumadaan, na pumapasok at tumalabas sa ating airways. We also consider yung tinatawag na emission. So yung emitted na So, ito may numerical value na. So, meron ka ng infectivity ng pathogen within the aerosols, which we represent using C sub I. Minsan, I na value lang sa other literature. So, the more potent the virus, the higher C sub I is. You also have the number of concentration of aerosols na binubuga natin. So, we have experimental studies that has provided bumubuga ng hangin. And syempre, nagmamatter din yung mass kasi napifilter muna kung ano man yung aerosols na nasa hangin kapag dumadalo siya through the mass. So the better the filtration rate ng mass, the lesser yung aerosols na nai-introduce sa hangin. So, papasok ngayon yung conservation ng tinatawag na quanta. So dun sa amount ng dose. Yung amount ng dose depende siya. So depende to sa ventilation rate mo. So itong dalawang to. Then siya yung magdidictate paano nagbabari yung concentration over. So kung mas magbilis nire-release, so ang tendency is negative na value to. Ibig sabihin bumababa yung concentration. So kung gusto mo naman malaman, particularly within the room, paano siya naglalakbay, gagamitin natin yung tinatawag na transport equation. So yung na-mention ko na diffusion, na-mention ko na convection, siya yung magde-determine ngayon over different parts ng room, gaano tumataas or bumababa yung dose na pwedeng ma-inhale. And speaking of C sub I, ngayon, syempre C sub I, hindi pa natin alam gaano ba ka-infectious yung virus. So the way that we've been determining this is we analyze yung mga super spreader events. We know the number of infected na infect dun sa infection event. We also know yung number ng occupants within that infection event. So parang yung total ng tao. Then we also know the number of aerosols generated by the occupants. So may experimental studies na to provide that. We also know the average breathing rate. We also know kung saang kwarto nangyari, saang location nangyari. So we already know yung dimensions ng room. So mapoproject na natin yung volume ng room. And typically, given naman yung dilution rate. So dilution rate, parang na-take into account na may bintana ba, may mechanical ventilation ba, merong bang air filters na present. Tapos, gaano katagal naglagay yung mga tao within dun sa room. Knowing all of those formula, isalpak nyo lang dito, you'll get yung C sub I. So that's how we are getting yung infectivity. And parang doon na papasok yung epidemiological na part. So, paano na tayo mag-work around in reducing yung risk of infection. So, you have this long equation right here, yung probability infection. So, yung na-mention ko na yung time of stay, yung volume ng room, ventilation, yung dilution rate, yung dose, yung effect ng mask, yung breathing rate. So, una is elimination control. So, source control. So, nire-reduce mo or ini-eliminate mo yung Q. So, kapag mas mababa yung Q, mas mababa yung value nito. Paglalagay ng air filters or UV technology. So yung UVGI or far UV technology. Ginagawa niya is ini-increase niya yung lambda, yung dilution rate. So pag nag-increase itong denominator na to, so this will get closer to 1. So if this get closer to 1, i-minus mo siya sa 1, magiging close to 0 yung probability of infection. And finally, yung personal protective na equipment dapat to. So yung masking, ginagawa mo lang is yung F sub O at saka yung F sub I, dinidecrease mo lang. So dahil mas mababa yung value nito, bumababa yung risk of infection. Dito rin papasok ngayon, ano yung evaluation natin over different spaces. So this is the recent paper na mapapublish. So ito yung preprint niya. So we analyze different rooms, including itong room na to. Itong room na kinatatagaan ko. So LRT, carousel bus, provincial bus, traditional jeepneys, and ito yung computed na ventilation rate. So we deployed economical CO2 monitors with a certain algorithm na capable na ma-derive yung ventilation rate based sa CO2 levels lang. And dahil alam na natin yung ventilation rate, depende kung anong mask yung suot mo, ma-anticipate mo na yung infection risk. So shown here are yung sa Omicron na variant. So traditional jeepneys, although mataas yung air change rate, pero dahil maliit yung volume, relatively mas mataas pa rin yung risk of infection mo. Kung ikukumpara mo siya sa modern jeepney, na mababa yung ventilation rate pero malaking volume, so kahit parehong mataas pero mas mataas yung infection risk kapag nasa modern jeep ka, yung sa air-conditioned jeepneys. You also have EDSA carousel, you have also LRT1, LRT2, MRT. So, another implication is face shields. Paano mo ngayon ma-determine yung intervention dala ng face shield? So, this is yung current na paper na under review, the Philippine Journal of Science. So, we tested yung face shield over different scenarios since in-introduce mo na outside of hospital setting. So, pwedeng saan-saan na manggagaling yung emission na kailangan salagin ng face shield. Paano ngayon siya masasala? Findings suggest na although ito yung sa hospital na setting, itong dalawang to. So ito yung walang face shield na part, ito yung merong face shield na part. Yes, you have protection na merong malaking reduction ng infection risk. Pero for other scenarios, halimbawa nagkaroon ng offset, so hindi siya direktang tumama sa face shield or nang galing sa likod yung source ng ubo or parang nakatagilid ka nung tumama yung emission. Nakatagilid ka, nasuot yung face shield, tapos tumama yung emission. Ang nangyari is nagdi-diminish yung protective effect. So sa hospital setting, ito lang, most of the literatures focus on this particular scenario na kaharap mo. Yes, you have reduction of risk, pero for other scenarios, instead na bumaba yung infection risk, tumataas kasi nire-redirect ngayon ng face shield yung emission towards dun sa face ng tao. So, yun yung isang policy implication. So, apart from highlighting yung importance of engineering controls And at the same time, kailangan pa rin nating mag-mask as a good source control and respiratory protection. Particularly ngayon na maraming nagkaka-flu. Hindi lang naman siya sa COVID eh. Pati rin naman siya applicable din naman siya to other respiratory diseases. And there's also a focus now on the engineering controls on which kailangan na rin natin monitor yung relative humidity. Kasi depende sa humidity mo kung gaano ka-infectious yung virus. Depende rin sa CO2 levels and syempre yung focus ng airflow. Yung airflow would serve as highways that transport airborne particles, either recirculating it or parang ginaguide mo siya towards yung exit. So may lalayo mo na siya sa tao. So you can take advantage of that knowledge. And to wrap this up, the COVID-19 pandemic has unraveled that there are actually two types of expertise that needs to work together when fighting disease. So you have the clinical expertise. So once the virus enters the body, siya yung magbibigay ng information sa'yo about the virus. Pero once it's outside in the environment, how it's transported, how it is transmitted, kailangan na natin ng help from the aerosol scientists, from the engineers, para makapag-determine ng physical measures to help us protect from COVID, which is important. And with that, I end my presentation.
Thank you so much, Engineer Agar, for that insightful talk. So, guys, take it from our speaker insights. It's all about the right fit and filtration, and put them together and you've got yourself a good mask, which means better risk reduction. So understanding this equation is a key to staying safe and lowering our risks effectively.
All right. Actually, ako personally, na-realize ko, kahit may mga computations, kahit tayo iniiwasan natin yan most of the time. Pero I realized that without the equations that we have discussed, parang hindi tayo magiging aware kung ano yung magiging action natin whenever dealing with the airborne diseases or infections like the pandemic that we have experienced. So, thank you so much po, Engineer Agar. Now, let's continue our discussion naman with our Q&A. So, you may send your questions through the link sent in the Zoom chat box, and we will read them aloud for our speaker to address. So, we have few questions here na po na nag-send na rin po. Go Paco for the first question.
Okay, so thank you, Joyce. So for our first question, actually, what should be the main consideration when retrofitting indoor spaces, and what specific aspects can we change to significantly improve air quality?
So when retrofitting indoor spaces, first is you need to evaluate what's in the environment. Kasi when, for example, you wanted to do ventilation, so you would be inducing an interaction between the indoor and the outdoor environment. So if the outdoor environment has bad air quality, so polluted yung hangin, syempre hindi mo naman, it's not something na gusto mong pumasok within the room. So ventilation will be then out of the question. So you would look for alternatives. So what you would do instead is to focus on filtration, on filtering the air or disinfecting the air. So the case-to-case basis siya. So, depende kung ano yung environmental factors.
All right. Thank you po, Engineer Agar. We have a few questions pa rin po dito from one of our participants then. Sabi po dito, how do we make these courses like these interesting enough even for younger and less educated people who may not be as aware of issues on safe public spaces? Let me repeat po. How do we make these courses like these interesting enough even for younger and less educated people who may not be as aware of issues on safe public spaces?
Yes, it is more of a challenge to do science communication kasi somehow highly technical nga yung topic. Nakita niyo naman yung mga equation. So I try as much as I can to put an abstract to describe what those equations meant. And the best way to do it is to always find ways to demonstrate those mechanisms. So for example, face shields. What you can do to demonstrate that is to use tissue. So you have a tissue that is very sensitive sa daloy ng hangin. Then you also have face shield. Then halimbawa may electric fan na dumadaloy dito. Once na naglagay ka ng tissue dito, pag nakita mo na pabaliktad yung direction, yun yung indicator sa'yo ng ng intervention na it's recirculating, umiikot siya pabalik. So it is through those not only yung persuasive na demonstration, but to rigor, kailangan talaga tiyagaan when we wanted to communicate this and to invoke yung interest. So first is perhaps ang marirecommend ko una is to communicate that the pandemic is not over. Yeah. Kasi ang may misconceive nga is yung dahil nilip yung state of public health emergency tapos na yung pandemic. Hindi, may mga kaso pa din na kumakalat, parang may mga kaso pa rin sa lahat ng bansa sa mundo. The pandemic is still ongoing. By acknowledging that the risk still exists or the hazard still exists, that's how we pick or renew yung interest ng tao.
All right, thank you for that answer. Another question from our slide also. In a survey before, the Philippines was considered as one of the countries with the stringent policies like having face shield, SQs, and also curfews. Yet we always had a high number of COVID-19 cases. So given this, do you think that the ECQs and curfews were necessary during the pandemic?
In hindsight, kasi we operate often with the information that we have. Yes, I think okay naman na nagkaroon ng lockdown sa simula, but it should transition into focusing more on infrastructural development. So dapat ni-retrofit yung mga facilities to prevent disease transmissions. Nagkaroon ng massive science communication on what's called yung non-pharmaceutical interventions rather than focusing on the vaccines alone. Yes, vaccines help, but kailangan, hindi siya yung silver bullet. Kailangan, kasama siya ng other measures na definitely na deprive tayo on knowing kung alin ba yung effect.
All right. Thank you po for that, engineer. And we have last question po on this segment po. So after discussing po yung lessons learned and possible solutions to lessen the impact of various airborne diseases, knowing po yung mga equations na diniscuss niyo po and such behind that, do you think po ba it would be easy to implement them in our country? If not naman po, what could be the possible problems that may hinder the implementation of these solutions? And how do you plan to address them po?
Nakamit ako. Sige. First roadblock din dito is having well-ventilated spaces. Parang kailangan mo siyang i-balance with structural resiliency. Halimbawa, buildings. So gusto mong damihan ng bintana para dumaloy ng maayos yung hangin. Pero pag may bagyo, dahil maraming bintana, mas mataas ngayon yung parang mas fragile ngayon yung building mo. So, kailangan mo makahanap ng tamang compromise. So, kailangan parang medyo kailangan magabol ng research on that. Another implication would be, or another roadblock, is how are we retrofitting, for example, yung trains? How are we introducing air exchangers? Gaano ba siya ka-feasible? Yun yung mga questions na kailangan masagot. Then finally, if you want to pursue yung ventilation as yung parang gusto mong i-mandate yung ventilation across facilities, kailangan maayos yung outdoor air quality in the first place. So kailangan nating ayusin muna yung outdoor air, then mag-shift ngayon yung attention sa indoor.
Yeah, agree po for that. Oh, si Sir Remy po, meron po kayong question, sir?
Yeah, actually, urgent question lang. Sir, what's the potential kaya for legislative interventions in this particular case? Do you think is it possible kaya that we might be able to change elements in our legislative, in our building code, for example, to adjust to what we now know about airborne vector pandemics?
I think ongoing there are already professional organizations like ASHRAE that is already adjusting towards the needs, knowing yung knowing yung lessons from the pandemic. So yung ASHRAE is the international organization in charge of the ventilation guidelines. So, nagkakascade naman siya towards the Philippines. And most of the building code naman mandated na to refer to the professionals that is responsible. So, for example, sa structural, civil engineers, for ventilation or mechanical ducting, kay mechanical engineers. And sa mechanical engineers naman, ay nagko-comply naman kay ASHRAE. So, mabilis naman yung pag-cascade. Pero as to the policy itself, particularly on occupational safety and health, I would be happy to inform you that we're actually collaborating with DOLE ngayon in our Center for Air Research in Urban Environment. So, ang expected outputs is indoor air quality monitoring, outdoor air monitoring, tapos yung specific procedures, saan optimally ka maglalagay ng sensors para ma-monitor mo or makuha mo yung representative na indoor air quality indices.
All right. Thank you so much po, Engineer Agar. That's a good news po on our end po, knowing na hindi naman po namin sila nakakausap. Anyway po, thank you so much po, Engineer Agar and Prof. Remy De Leon for that.
So thank you everyone for that Q&A. Truly, the discussion has greatly enriched our knowledge and understanding about better breathing spaces in the country.
Yes, all right. Now naman po, to show our sincerest gratitude po to our first speaker for his exemplary contribution to this forum, we present po this certificate of appreciation. All right, let me read the citation po. So this certificate of appreciation given to Engineer Joshua C. Agar for their outstanding contribution and generous sharing of knowledge on the challenges and lessons learned from the pandemic, existing policies and gaps and policy recommendations during their presentation at Miyabe Abeng Mangisnawa Synergizing Systems for Safer Public Spaces in the Philippines, held on December 14, 2023 via Zoom. Signed by the project head, Mr. McLaren Cruz, and our STS1 professor, Mr. Remy De Leon. Thank you so much po, Engineer Agar.
Thank you so much po, Engineer. So why don't we share some heart reacts to show him our appreciation?
Yes, and let's do a quick photo op lang po with the whole participants po. To those who can open their cameras on, kindly do so po. Alright, or if hindi naman po kaya, just heart reacts naman po to show some love po kay Engineer Agar. Alright, I'll be counting po. And the documentation team will screenshot na lang po. Alright po. 1, 2, 3, smile. Next naman po. Next slide po. Last po. 1, 2, 3, smile. Alright. Once again po, thank you so much, Engineer Agan, for being with us today. All right, before we welcome our second speaker, a quick heads up lang po that we're live on our Facebook page right now. Thanks to our tech team. And so for those tuning in online, feel free to engage, comment, and be part of this insightful discussion. First speaker pa lang po yon. Meron pa po tayong second speaker. So let's get ready na po sa next speaker natin for his enlightening insights.
It's an absolute pleasure for us to introduce our second speaker for today's session.
All right, our speaker for this second segment is a licensed landscape architect, urban planner, and urban designer dedicated to creating inclusive, livable, and vibrant cities. He graduated cum laude in landscape architecture from the University of the Philippines, Diliman in 2010, and earned a double master's degree in urban planning and design from the University of Auckland, New Zealand, graduating with second-class honors in 2016. 2017. Wow! In October 2023, he finished the Australia Awards Fellows for Climate Resilient Placemaking at the University of Melbourne and also managed the Green 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 program focusing on public parks and open spaces in 146 Philippine cities.
Please join us in welcoming landscape architect Don Patrick Manlangit. Let's give him a virtual round of applause.
Good morning po.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'll be sharing my screen for the presentation. So just to continue with our presentation, Engineer Agard explained more on the engineering and the technical aspects of the airport. For me, as a landscape architect, I'll be focusing more on the interventions in terms of the urban planning and the landscape field, on how the built environment is actually designed or adjusted based on the pandemic that happened. So briefly, I'll also be explaining. So a landscape architect is actually we're focusing on the outdoor spaces. So we're focusing on the planning of the outdoor spaces, the buildings, the landscapes, and everything. So we will be more focusing on that aspect in relation to the pandemic that happened. All right. So firstly, this is an image if you're familiar with Rizal Park. So Rizal Park is actually a huge park. So it is a 58-hectare park. Pero so it's very nice, very expansive. Ang concern lang dito with the Rizal Park is actually ito lang yung pinakamalaking park natin sa Metro Manila area. After that, excluding other parks, wala na tayong open spaces talaga. So it's very congested, very built up ang Metro Manila. All right. So I'll be focusing on public open spaces. So these are really, as according to UN Habitat, these are spaces which are accessible and enjoyable by all without a profit. So meaning it should be free access, walang bayad dapat. And it can be in any other forms. It can be parks, streets, it's also considered a public open space, sidewalks, markets, and playgrounds. So hindi lang siya physical development, kundi it also enhances community cohesion and social well-being, happiness, and also health for everyone. This is an example of Iloilo River Esplanade, which has garnered several awards based from this major development. So why are parks and green spaces important? These are just some of the main benefits of the parks, but it has several interlaying advantages of why parks are very important. So first one, it in terms of sustainability, so it mitigates the harmful effects of pollution, because as trees absorb pollution, so it is a catchment for these filtering systems. They're also good for both mental and social health. So these are places that people can relax and think and give us a break, and also physical exercises for everyone, social cohesion, and also settings for different events or venues. And also some of the parks has museums, sculptures, or something. So parks are more than the lungs. So lungs, these are the breathing spaces, but they can also be the center of our urban life. So the social center of the society. So these are some of the types of public open spaces that we have. We have a plaza. So I think most of you are familiar that because of the Spanish settlement, most of our cities or towns are designed with a plaza at the middle, and then beside that is the church, the municipio, the market, and all the rich houses within that plaza area. So at least we have this open space that we cater from the historical perspective. Also, we have some parks. So this is in Taguig City. Also, esplanades. Esplanades are open spaces that are along the body of water, like a river or a sea or an ocean. Also, a street. This is in Calle Crisologo. I think most of are familiar with Vigan. This is a famous tourist landmark in Vigan. So a street is considered a public open space. It can also be a space for people to interact and engage. So according to the World Health Organization, one person should have 9 square meters of green space. So, and then in terms of walkability, urban citizen should live within a 15-minute walk to a green space. So based on this rating, based on the cities that they have rate, Vienna is one of the highest ratio proportion between a person and its open spaces allocation. So in Vienna, one person has 120 square meters of green open spaces. And then some other cities like Singapore, Istanbul, and then the rest we cannot see Manila or other Philippine cities because we are way below the required green open space per inhabitant as according to the WHO rating. So according to UN Habitat as well, we should have an allocation of 45% public open spaces to streets and public open spaces. So 30% streets and sidewalks, and then 15% open spaces. This is the ideal scenario, but in the current setting, it doesn't really happen well. Most of our private developers are doing this, but yeah, in terms of our public planning, it's not really feasible with this kind of allocation. So during the pandemic, so everyone got really drastic change. So people are forced to endure the lockdowns. So everyone are based indoors agad, schools, workplace, and everything. So we are also forced to wear face masks, and then also social distancing was implemented well. So you can see the bubble. So your own bubble. So we are really forced to be isolated from the rest of the group or from the rest of our communities. So what are the major moves during the pandemic? What are the changes that happened? First, we actually shifted our indoor to outdoor dining. So people became appreciative na mag-engage outdoors. So some of the restaurants are actually opening their dining areas on the streets to really, because people prefer to be on outdoor setting. So yun, nag-force, hindi naman nag-force, but technically parang nag-adapt sila sa changes na preferred ng mga tao because, the DOH are really forcing that we should be outdoors. Also, in relation to the private sector, shopping malls are actually investing on outdoor spaces as well. So there are parks and plazas, parks that are adjoining. This is in SM Mall of Asia Sky Garden, which recently opened this year. But formerly, this is just a typical roof deck with all their gen sets on it. But now they're changing their roof decks to become places for, for recreation and public parks, so that people can really enjoy. Next is we are really so we are forced to social distancing movement. We cannot really there's at least 1 meter distance from each other. And also, people are also adapting to that because of the restrictions on movement. People have become appreciative of doing bikes, of moving through their bikes. So that's why, according to the former DOH secretary, parks and green spaces are very important, even without the pandemic, but much more important because of it. So it became very relevant because people are really clamoring for open space, breathing spaces, because we are really very much isolated and parang nakakulong nga tayo. So this is the aerial photo of Manila. If you can see, it's really built up. Yung mga spaces na nakita yung may green spaces, actually, this is an American Memorial Park, so it's not really a public open space. And this is a golf course. So kung makita mo, very congested talaga ang Metro Manila. That's why, as urban planners and landscape architects, it's really the task on how we can, regain and get or develop more public open spaces for all. So urban planners should create and government should create more public parks and green spaces to usher in a better normal. So parang mas naging appreciative ang government, also the private sector, to really create more good public open spaces. Also, according to NACTO, so this is the design for the Streets for Pandemic Response and Recovery on how these are our design guidelines on how we can use streets for pandemic preparedness. So these are some of the design guidelines that they are suggesting. So really increasing width for walking. So if you can see the picture, this is the typical sidewalk, and they are extending it So parang nakain nila yung regular lane for driveway for cars to accommodate wider spaces for pathways. Also, yun nga, may safety barriers din tayo to really protect our pedestrians and clear markings and protection. We can also have, yun nga, so ang nangyari na ngayon, if you notice, we have already dedicated space for safe cycling and also protected barriers talaga to really protect our cyclists and clear markings and barriers as well. Also, some streets are actually closed, para we can have spaces for recreation and for people to really enjoy the space, and also adapt for emergency access and delivery. So if you can see, it's no car zone, but it can all open for example, for ambulance or any emergency access na kailangan man. And also, yun nga, as mentioned previously, some spaces are actually became spaces for outdoor dining. So some of the restaurants are actually accommodating spaces for to accommodate the outdoor dining clients. So this is in Iloilo City. So Iloilo City has been very aggressive in terms of cycling lanes and really providing dedicated and good cycling and walking lanes. So they have, I think, created at least 30 kilometers stretch of cycling lanes all throughout the city. And this is what you call tactical urbanism, in which people are using mga cheap materials like paints or benches to reclaim the space for people to enjoy. So this is in Milan, and also in our local scenario, Makati. They have they actually reclaim the street for people to have seating spaces and also bike lanes and all really walkable good spaces. So this is during pandemic, which they have catered this Makati tactical urbanism. These are some of the example short-term interventions with a long-term health vision to really have accommodate all the future pandemic. So open streets, parks, and public open spaces, and also testing locations, and also essential businesses should be open and concentrated motorized traffic. So I think we've noticed previously, we don't have any actually dedicated bike lanes before the pre-pandemic, but during the pandemic era, because many people are forced to do cycling as the mode of transport, nagkaroon muna tayo ng tactical urbanism intervention on how to protect our cyclists. So we, in Commonwealth, they use parang mga plastic bottles lang. And then now it became really permanent. So we really have safety, clear markings with protected barriers, and really, allocate space for cyclists as well, not just for cars. So as mentioned, I also previously worked with the Department of Budget and Management. So I manage the Green program. This is a special fund dedicated for the development of public open spaces to 146 cities in the Philippines from 2018 to 2021. So this actually aligns on how we create public open spaces for across the Philippines. This is a funding from the national government directly to the cities. So these are some of the examples that we have been completed since we've worked from 2018 to 2021. So this is in Doña Leonila Park in San Pablo City, Laguna. What interesting of this project, because this actually, aside from redeveloping a formerly dilapidated park, so they fixed the fountains, lightings, and all. Because I have close relationship with the tourism officers and all the LGU officials, their parks actually became the spaces for all their meetings, events, because there are restrictions on the amount of people to be to hold a meeting previously during the pandemic era. You cannot actually hold this large group of people. So that's why most of the parks became settings for events and spaces for people to engage and to really interact. So this is the meeting, LGU-wide meeting in Laguna. And also, because of the shift from indoors to outdoors, they also held their first Simbang Gabi outdoors in this park. So their park really became their essential center of life in their city. Next is Balayong People's Park in Puerto Princesa City, Palawan. So the Puerto Princesa City has very large open space. They have around 60 hectares of land dedicated for parks in their government center. This is in Balayong is actually local name for the Palawan cherry blossom. So cherry blossom, we have our own cherry blossom version. It's it's very endemic in Palawan, Palawan Island. So this is just one of the viewing decks. We have boardwalks and open spaces. This is the massive area that we created with parks, outdoor amphitheater. So really catering for outdoor activities and for really people to engage. And they are still expanding and creating lots of adjacent areas for parks in this area. Next is Bislig Bayfront. This is in Mindanao, in Surigao del Sur. So this is their first waterfront park. And also this project has won the 2021 Golden Tresini Awards for landscape architecture. So this is one of the recipients based from the Philippines that won this award. So this is a waterfront project, and it is very transformative because it is ito yung first na park nila. So people are really very excited to have this park. They have a children's playground, and there's an edible community garden. So these are all edible. So people are really enjoying, the outdoors as well as places for food production as well, and also a view overlooking the bay. And yes, this is the award that was mentioned. And then also Centro Naga. So just to emphasize, because the DBM fund also supported cycling lanes and pathways. So this is in Naga Kamsur. So they really created spaces for safe and walkable space for all, and then dedicated bike lanes as well. So it is a long stretch along the main center of the city, and also covered walkways for people to engage. And then this is the Peña Francia Church. And then, it's really dedicated and connected and really have a safe and walkable space for all. Moving forward, the Department of Health actually issued the Healthy Pilipinas. So I just heard from this talk last month when I attended a representative from DOH. They organized the Healthy Pilipinas, Kaalamang Kalusugan para sa lahat. So this was the initiative after the pandemic, so 2022, that they launched the Healthy Pilipinas. This is a communication campaign to really promote a healthy lifestyle for all. So and as part of their agenda, they actually launched a joint administrative order on healthy public open spaces. So this is an initiative governed by, this is very latest. It was dated August 14, 2023. Spearheaded by DOH with DILG, DOT, Department of Tourism, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, DSUD, Department of Housing and Settlements, DPWH, Philippine Center for Women, PCW, and then the National Commission of Culture and the Arts, NCCA. So this is the guidelines and creation for the use and management of parks and public open spaces in promotion of physical and mental health and social well-being. So it became really a legislative direction for this national government agencies to really promote a healthy public open spaces for all. In hindsight, the guidelines, the joint administrative order, emphasize on creating open and accessible public open spaces, an inclusive space for children, elderly, PWD, and pet friendly. Also, safe spaces for all genders, so LGBTQI plus, and then smoke and vape free, alcohol free, drug free, and lastly, hand washing and sanitation for all our public open spaces. And then lastly, I want to leave this quotation from John Ruskin. So the measure of any great civilization is its cities, but a measure of a city's greatness is to be found in the quality of its public open spaces, parks, and squares. So for that, thank you so much. And I hope you've learned from this presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much po, Landscape Architect Don. As someone po who loves park and walks a lot po, this is really interesting and good to know po about it's good to know po about all of this po. And hearing the initiatives, intervention po, it makes us, personally po, it makes me love our country more and hoping for more public spaces in 2024. All right. Thank you so much po for that.
Okay. That's right, Joyce. No, that what a captivating exploration we've had. And now it's your turn, our engaged audience, to take the spotlight. And we are welcoming your questions eagerly. So simply head over to the link provided in the Zoom chat box. And this discussion is about to get even more intriguing with your participation.
Yes.
Okay, so actually there is first question here. So is there anything that can be done legislatively so that places which are not yet highly urbanized, for example, second-class municipalities or lower, will be able to, or better yet, required to preserve their own spaces?
Yes. Actually, with the joint municipal order, it's actually not focusing on cities only. So it focuses all municipalities, all cities, and once they have this, they will be support funding. So part of their administrative order is actually to provide technical capacity building for all our LGU officials, so that they know how to develop public open spaces and allocate spaces for people. And next would be it will be part of the learning process so that the LGU officials can also allocate funding in the development of these spaces. So they just started because they just initiated this August. But in the next coming months, there will be more aggressive in terms of really reaching out to these LGUs and really developing this the implementation of this administrative order. Thank you.
All right. Thank you po for that. At least there is more to come.
Yes.
We have a question naman po from our Prof. Remy De Leon po. Sabi po, how safe are tall residential condominium buildings, especially considering the dependence on elevators? And can something be done to make them safer in relation to airborne vectors? Let me repeat po. How safe are tall residential condominium buildings, especially considering the dependence on elevators? And can something be done to make them safer in relation to airborne vectors?
Okay, I'm not sure if this is the question for me, but for a landscape architect, in terms of airborne vectors, actually, because most of the residential buildings, it depends on the structural and the architectural design. We have a really good ventilation, provision for wider windows and openings to really accommodate for airflow. In terms of dependency on elevators, is it in relation to emergency access? I mean, in terms of if there's fire, because usually if there's an evacuation emergency, all tall buildings, I mean, all buildings are required to have a fire exit access, so emergency access. So for example, in terms of earthquake, you will not be using the elevators talaga when evacuating your units. So you will be really required to take down the stairs, to access and to safely evacuate your building. Thank you. Does it answer?
Alright, thank you po, sir. What about naman po if nandito pa po si Engineer Agar for that? Parang on your perspective lang po. Is Engineer Agar here pa po? Alright, maybe let's okay. Alright, sir.
Hello. Ano nga ulit? Sige, sorry.
Okay po, let me repeat po. Okay po. How safe are tall residential condominium buildings, especially considering the dependence on elevators? And can something be done to make them safer in relation to airborne vectors?
With adequate ducting, siguro. If you see na merong ducts na within the condominium buildings, I think safe naman siya. However, if you recall, if we recall the past super spreader events, may nangyari kasing one instance na through the sewage pipes pumasok. Kasi ang nangyari doon is wala kang P-trap doon sa sewage mo. So yung wastewater na may dalang na possible na pinagdepositan ng virus, nag-aerosolize yung yung nagkaroon ng aerosolization. Then pumasok ngayon dun sa room yung aerosol na may dalang virus through those sewage ducts. So yun yung mga kailangan i-consider, but generally if you simply open yung windows, given that you're way off the ground, you would expect kasi na as you go higher from the ground, mas malakas yung wind speed. Dahil malakas yung hangin, tendency is mas mabilis mapapalitan yung hangin. So, yeah. So, either meron kang natural ventilation, okay naman siya sa natural ventilation. But as to the mechanical ventilation na part, pwede nyo i-inquire kung ano yung mechanical plan na in-implement.
Okay, thank you for that, Engineer Agar. Now there's a question for landscape architect Don. Can we still create green open spaces in the metro given the level of congestion, and can we still achieve the WHO recommendation, and do we have the funding to achieve it?
So yeah, firstly, in terms of can we still achieve despite the congestion? So that's why we are doing creative ways on how we can regain public open spaces. So in Metro Manila, because it's quite congested now, some of the streets are actually being transformed to more, walkable and, a shared pathway so that people can really enjoy. So, and also our roof decks. Some of the buildings are transforming their roof decks, like the offices in Makati. They have projects that their former, idle roof decks have been transformed into breathable roof gardens so that people can, connect with green spaces. We can't really, change the legislative in terms of the planning that's already built up. So that's why we're doing creative ways. In terms of funding, the government has been aggressive in really promoting funding for public open spaces, especially with formerly the Green Deal Green. Also, some of the LGUs, because they saw the importance of having green open spaces, the LGU has also actually the mandate in terms of their budget to allocate green open spaces. Although it is really the discretion, of course, with the mayor kung ipa-prioritize niya yung development of these projects. So yun.
All right, sir. With regards po to your answer po, given the difficulties of creating and maintaining green open spaces in Manila po, should we shift our focus po ba to the provinces instead?
Yeah, I think both the cities and the provinces should really, focus on or prioritize in really developing public open spaces. Ang kagandahan lang with the provinces because they still have lots of open spaces available, so they can really accommodate these developments. So it's much better kasi mag-start sa umpisa pa lang dahil may available land pa silang pwedeng i-develop. Unlike with the built-up cities like Metro Manila or Metro Cebu, Davao, which is very congested na. So that's why very creative na yung mga ways. Also, for example, if we have the rivers can also be a venue for parks. So we have many waterways or esplanades that can be developed along the river. And these are as per our national law, these are mandated public open spaces owned by the owned by the government. So we can, reclaim this and use this as our parks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you po. Next question po is, which interventions or plans are difficult or nearly impossible given the current situation in the Philippines? And what do you think are the barriers to its realization?
So sorry, first is the interventions.
Yes po.
So in terms of public opens, in terms of the public, because we have public and private. Actually, the private it's very more aggressive in terms of really providing green open spaces because once you develop a public open spaces, it actually increases the market value of that space. That's why many malls are really accommodating lush landscapes if you're familiar with Ayala or SM, they're really providing funds to really, make the space beautiful and make the outdoor spaces convenient for all. In the public sector naman, the difficulty is really, how you encourage our officials to, value these public open spaces as a major element of the city. Kasi it's very discretionary eh. So ano yung priority ng ating mayor or ng ating mga officials. So if they can see the value that once you develop this, people will become healthy, people will use the space, and it will become a safer space, then it will be a great value for all. In terms of the barriers or interventions, it's actually more of knowledge promotion or yung awareness nila. Kasi means within the Philippine setting, hindi kasi natin masyadong nabavalue talaga yung mga parks and open spaces. Pero once they go out and they really explore other cities outside, parang international cities, most of their beautiful spaces are actually located in their parks or plazas. So that's why it's will become a major investment for the cities to attract tourism and also attract, after tourism, economics will follow as well. So yeah.
Alright, thank you, sir. I'd like to agree po sa sinabi niyo na it would be a collaboration po ng people plus the government and everyone na nag-work when it comes to public spaces po. Thank you, sir. Last po, if I'm not mistaken po, in your opinion po, what type of PUV or road-based or railways is more appropriate in creating more public spaces in our cities po? Again, sa opinion niyo po, what type of PUV road-based or railways po is more appropriate in creating more public spaces in our cities po?
In terms of road-based, actually, hindi naman sa pero actually mas ideal talaga in terms of mass transport kasi the trains can really accommodate a large number of people too. Kasi the mandate of transport is actually on how you move people and not cars. So once you invest more on trains, reliable, good, and then meaning reliable, maraming frequent yung trains, and also so people can really shift from moving from cars to using public transport. In hindsight, we can also develop road-based na PUVs to make it more like a much systematic yung approach para hindi masyadong congested. Hindi parang nagkakagulo in terms of really having more passengers to accommodate. Kasi mas okay kung may route din sila na specific and then may timing din ang lahat. Alam mo yon, mas organized ideally to really have a more comfortable and equitable friendly for all our passengers. So once we have that, actually, we can really shift in having spaces for public open spaces. Kasi we don't need to have more roads or streets. Kasi once we have good public transport, yun talaga yung pinakasusi good, efficient, and effective public transport. It can be in all forms. So trains, roads, buses, or PUVs, tricycles, and also cycling lanes. So we can have more, a more breathable and a more livable and pedestrian-friendly place for all. So yun. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much po, Architect. And thank you everyone for that insightful discussion po. Now, kasama na po namin kayo, Landscape Architect Don Manlangit, for you to receive a token of appreciation po.
So we present this certificate in recognition of your valuable insights and contribution to this forum. So let me read. This certificate of appreciation is given to Landscape Architect Don Patrick Manlangit for their outstanding contribution and generous sharing of knowledge on the innovative design approaches and technological interventions for pandemic preparedness. During their presentation at Miyabe-Abeng Mangisnawa, Synergizing Systems for Safer Public Spaces in the Philippines, held on December 14, 2023 through Zoom, signed by our project head, Mr. McLaren Cruz, and our STS1 professor, Mr. Remy De Leon.
Alright. Let's take a photo rin po ulit. Same as earlier po. Okay. Open cam po to everyone na makakapag-open cam. And heart reacts na lang sa mga hindi naman po. Alright. Our documentation team po will just screenshot po ang ating screen. Okay po. I'll count po. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next naman po. Okay na po ba ang ating first slide? Alright. Second slide naman po. Again po, smile pa rin po. 1, 2. Alright. Thank you so much po, Architect Don.
Thank you.
And so thank you once again to our speakers. And at this point, a link to our evaluation form will be sent in the Zoom chat box. And kindly fill up the form to let our team know how this event has helped you in your learning. Also, please do not leave the meeting yet. Wait until our photo opportunity to confirm your attendance and to be part of our raffle draw. So the winner will be posted on our FB page, so stay tuned for the updates.
Wow, ako din na-excite ako sa raffle draw. Anyway, thank you so much again po to our two speakers for that insightful discussion. As we close this fruitful forum, may we now call on the director of this event, Mr. McLaren Cruz, to give the closing remarks.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for attending our event. We all know how drastic pandemic can change our lives. COVID-19 taught us some hard lessons, and it affected all aspects of our lives, and some even lost loved ones because of it. We do not intend to be pessimistic, but we know that the next pandemic is a certainty, and it is only a matter of time before it arrives. But this is why we wanted to do this forum, to raise awareness regarding its spread and the importance of ventilation, design, and urban architecture to mitigate its effects. We want to be a part of the movement to create and improve breathing spaces, and we want to encourage others to be a part of it as well. With that, I would just like to thank the people who contributed to the success of this endeavor. First of all, our STS1 professor, Professor Remy De Leon, for inspiring us to hold this forum and for guiding us throughout the process. Our esteemed speakers, Engineer Joshua Agar and Architect Don Manlangit, for their invaluable insights and for helping us achieve our goal of raising awareness regarding this topic. Our participants and our partners, Crew UP Clark and UP Business Management Society, for engaging throughout the forum and being a part of our event and supporting our cause. And last but definitely not the least, thank you to the very hardworking team behind this event, the committee heads, the host, and all the team members. This would not be possible without your efforts. They truly are the heart and soul of this affair, and they deserve all the applause. Once again, thank you so much for attending this event. We hope you learned something and hope you enjoyed our program. Thank you.
A heartfelt thank you, McLaren, for officially wrapping up our event. Your leadership and unwavering dedication have been the cornerstone of this forum's success.
Yes, thank you so much to our project head. But wait, before we leave this meeting, may we ask everyone again to please open their cameras for our final documentation. For those who can po, sabi ko nga po kanina, kindly click the heart react button instead. All right, we will wait po sa mga iba po pong mag-open cam. Mag-open cam na po kayo. Para
Meron
makita po namin kayo.
Meron pa bang mga bagong gising dyan?
Alright, pero yung discussion natin, kahit umagang-umaga, sobrang ganda. At saka sobrang malaman. Anyway, meron pa po ba? Alright, I guess, ayan, yung mahabol pa. Alright, thank you so much everyone for being with us this morning. Alright. Okay, we have 2 slides only. Alright, magbibilang pa ako ulit. Game po. 1, 2, 3. Okay, last slide po. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Alright, thank you everyone.
Once again, we would like to acknowledge our wonderful partners who've made this event possible. So let's extend our heartfelt gratitude to Crew UP Clark and UP Business Management Society. So we thank you for your unwavering support and collaboration. And this forum wasn't just a conversation, it was just call to action. We've aimed to mitigate the impact of airborne diseases in our public spaces, igniting awareness and fostering diverse perspective to confront this pressing issue head-on.
As we conclude, let this forum not merely be a moment in time. Let it be a catalyst for change and a fuel for progress. May the insights gained here today reverberate through our actions, guiding us toward a future where safer public spaces are a reality for all.
So to everyone, thank you for your unwavering commitment, your invaluable contribution, and your dedication to this cause. Together, let's continue to shape a world where health, safety, and innovation harmoniously coexist. Until we meet again on this remarkable journey of progress. Again, this is Paco Tumangan.
And this is Joyce Chua. Taranat miyabe abeng mangisnawa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. Thank you to our speakers.
Thank you po.
Thank you.